Hi everyone, and welcome back to another one of my 21 wildlife walks. Today I'm down at Falmouth in Cornwall, and I'm going to be walking along the coastline here and showing you what wildlife it has to offer, as well as speaking to a very special guest. So I've now walked some of the coastal path along in Falmouth here, and I've just been sat overlooking this wonderful view of Falmouth Bay. So far I've seen a little egret, I've seen lots of swallows flying over the water, some gannets far out to sea, and I've just been sat here watching a group of oyster catcher feeding along the rock pools here. And oyster catchers are actually one of my favourite species of wader, just because they are so easy to see in a lot of urban locations on the coast. And also I've just seen a wool brown butterfly, which I don't see very often. So I certainly couldn't leave Cornwall without doing some rock pooling. And even though I might not know what some of the species are, I could spend hours and hours looking amongst these pools of water in this ecosystem here, finding treasures and treasures. And here's some of the wildlife I've spotted so far. So I'm now joined with Gillian Burke. Hi Gillian.
Hello.
So we're here sitting on the lovely Falmouth beach here. So could you just tell us a bit about where we are?
Okay, so if you're just focusing on what's behind me, you wouldn't really get the sense that we're on this lovely beach. But yeah, we're on a town beach called Gillian Burke Beach. It's a really popular holiday spot. It's, you know, dog walkers in the winter, beach goers in the summer, everything in between. I've lived here now for about 12 years, and this particular spot is kind of hidden away. It's not top secret, you know. It's accessed at low tide, and it's a great spot for rock pooling, but a really good spot for the youths, young people who like to come and hang out here. So you might see some graffiti, I don't know, they're painted behind me, but yeah, you'll see all that there. There's a part of me that really loves the idea that this spot has so many different uses for different people, and people can access nature in loads of different ways, even if they don't realize they're sitting in nature, you know. So certainly people come down here and have like little beach fires and parties at night and stuff, but in a way it can irritate people because there's litter and stuff, but I still see it as a kind of unintended opportunity for people to be out in nature, even if they don't really connect with it in the way that, you know, most people in the nature sector would love everyone to. So yeah, lots of reasons why we're here. I could go on, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to be. It's such a lovely view, and you know, yeah, great way for young people to sort of connect with the natural world, even if they're not intending to.
Yeah, no, at all. Yeah.
So what's your sort of favourite part of being in nature down in Cornwall?
I mean, the sea is almost impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
I mean, actually you can if you really want to, but you know, you're never far from the sea no matter where you are in this county. I'm really lucky to live in a town that literally has like 3, you know, depending on the tides, even 4 really great town beaches that are not that developed, you know, compared to other seaside towns. So what I love about it is it's just easy to get down to. It's free. I can walk down here pretty much in any weather, and I do. And I think what I really learned, and I'm getting bored about talking about lockdowns and COVID, but you can't ignore it. It did change a lot. And one of the things for me is it kind of taught me to just keep walking that same route day in, day out. The monotony of it, obviously, you know, kind of can get to you, but I did start to appreciate what's here, what's on my doorstep, and how it changes through the seasons. And I now have like this particular spot. We won't see it now because it's the wrong season, but in the winter, one of the first sort of what I consider my little story is I had spotted a curlew on the rocky reef, literally kind of where I'm pointing there, right? And that was the thing that caught my eye. And I sat there watching it, you know, for quite a long time. I can't even remember what year this was. It was a few years pre-COVID. And then while I was watching this curlew, I kept sort of seeing what looked like a rusty spot on the rock. And like was kind of filtering out, you know, I wasn't really paying attention to it. And then all of a sudden my brain, there's something in my subconscious that was pinging, going, rust on a rock? Come on, look at it more closely, right? And so I got my binoculars and just trained it on this rusty spot. And also I saw this like jewel, you know, bright blue, electric blue flash.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, it's a kingfisher.
Oh, my favorite bird.
I know. So literally kingfisher and curlew, all like, you know, kind of around this, you know, they're both, I should say, both around the same little like rock pool. And kingfisher was busy hunting. And I had to actually texted Yolo, who's like my sort of like, you know, phone a friend person, like, because, you know, I'm a biologist, I'm not a naturalist, right? So like, Yolo, am I seeing things, or is this possible? Kingfisher on a beach, you know, on a rocky reef, actually fishing in a rock pool. And he explained that, that is possible in winter, particularly if there's been storms and the water and the rivers are kind of a bit turbid, they've got poor visibility, they'll be pushed out onto these kind of, this sort of habitat in the winter. So that was pretty cool. And then over time, what I noticed was that the curlew and the kingfisher almost always showed up together at the same time. No explanation.
Never heard of that before.
But I could almost guarantee that if I saw the curlew, the kingfisher would be there, and it was always on the outgoing tide.
Oh God, that's so cool. I've never seen
it's cool
kingfisher in this sort of area, but you know.
I know.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So that's why I like the spot.
Yeah, how did you sort of get into, you know, how did your love of the natural world begin?
Okay, it began when I began, basically. I was lucky enough to be born in Kenya a long time before the internet was invented, before phones were invented, before daytime telly was a thing. So to be honest, like, it wasn't a choice, it was just there. And it was it's not like I grew up in the wilds, you know, and that stuff. I lived like in the outskirts of Nairobi, the capital, and playing was outdoors, and outdoors was a kind of messy tangle of, you know, I mean, there was no human influence at all. There was lots of like little vegetable gardens, small holdings, but there was also it wasn't as controlled. So it was sort of a mixture of like wild and kind of managed. Farm, you know, sort of, it was a much more, it was like, I always think it was like a conversation between the human world and the natural world, and I just moved between the two.
How does sort of our wildlife compare to what you grew up with?
You know, I wish I could say, it's brilliant. No, you can't compare, you know, because the environment has been so radically altered in Britain. And you know, the African perspective is often that, you know, whoa, how can you come to, you know, kind of African countries and tell everyone that you can't cut the forest, you can't, you know, farm the land, you can't do these things, because look at your country, look at what you've done to it, right? So that's something I've heard since I was really small. That's not a new idea, it's not a new perspective, it's just not one that's heard often here. So you can't compare the fact that, you know, I mean, the Kenya that I grew up in and the Kenya of today in 2023 is radically different. But the Kenya I grew up in, you can't compare. Like, you know, there was megafauna, elephants, giraffe, you had rhino, you know, it's just hippos, like crocodiles. Like, obviously not in my garden. I didn't grow up like that sort of like, you know. There are people that have, they're definitely presenters that people know who've had that childhood. I did, but I did, you know, I was lucky that my dad took us out, you know, as much as he could to the national parks. We get a lot of exposure to that, but I didn't grow up around it. So it's I talk a lot, I'm really sorry.
No, that's all right, as much as possible. So, you know, I've been talking a lot about sort of conservation and the different issues within my video so far, and unfortunately a lot of it is, you know, negative. You know, you see on social media, all these things that are happening that don't, you know, particularly inspire you with hope. But what does give you hope in conservation? And are there sort of any projects that you're particularly passionate about? You know, any issues in particular?
I mean, look, you know, I think one of the real privileges of the work I do on the watches is I get to go and meet any number of people, you know, whether it's volunteers to, you know, like really eminent scientists. There's a whole spectrum of people all out there, from all walks of life, all backgrounds, in every country in the world, trying to make a difference.
Yeah.
That in of itself is amazing. But I think if I'm going to answer the question really directly, the thing that really gives me hope and the thing I pay a lot of attention to is actually almost slightly outside of the conservation sector. It's the sort of there are lots of names for it. Maybe the best name for it is the regenerative agriculture. It's where the kind of work is being done to try and meet human needs and the needs of non-human species, and trying to reframe the way we see our world around us, the way we get what we need from it, but also give back at the same time. So that reciprocity. Tricky word, but it's a good word. And to me, that's a really hopeful space, because I do think that you can't ignore human needs when we're talking about nature, we're talking about conservation. I think the idea of like fencing off areas and kind of almost preserving it like a museum piece.
It's not the way to go.
No, I think it's like, you know, we really have to kind of embrace, like, it's about going into mindsets. So I see, that's where I see the most going on. I see it's a really diverse space. I get a lot of hope from that.
Yeah, I think we have to like remind ourselves and, you know, the public that we are nature. Like we're so separated like these days. But like as soon as we sort of realise that, you know, we're part of the landscape, we're part of nature, you know, that's where change can happen. But it's about talking to, you know, the people higher up. It's about convincing them, and that's going to be a whole other, you know, it's one step at a time with that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, just as a final thought, you're 100%, I think that's 100% right, you know, because I've spent way too long thinking that the solution is to change everyone's mind, you know, and like change everyone's behavior. And actually, you know, more recently, it's about shining the light on the people that have the real power to change. I mean, we can all do our bit, but the people in power and the big corporations, they're really the ones who have, like, in terms of gains per unit effort, they can make the biggest changes. And that's definitely where we need to be shining the light on way more than we ever have. Yeah.
So just a quick final question. You know, you've been on quite a few series of the watches now. What's been your sort of favourite feature to film, or sort of favourite, you know, it's quite a big question, lots to choose from, but is there anything in particular
Oh gosh, right, okay. I mean, I never not liked a moment. I mean, let me think.
There's a lot to choose from.
Do you know, I mean, there's been a whole range, you know, sort of like diving with gannets off Bass Rock, or,
so cool.
you know, filming, I don't know, you know, at a sewage treatment works in Cornwall, like,
quite
you
different.
know, yeah, very different, you know. What I would say, though, still one of the standout experiences, it was actually one of the first items I did for the watches, which is when I filmed ladybird spiders.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's still like hard to beat. Yeah.
Oh, I would love to see them.
Yeah. They are. Well, good luck.
Yeah, I know. One day. Well, yeah, thank you very much for being here today.
Yeah.
And chatting with me, and on this lovely spot in Falmouth.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So sadly, my time in Falmouth is coming to an end. But I hope you enjoyed today's video and walk, and thank you to Gillian for joining me for a great chat. You can see all my other walks so far on my YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next one.